Good morning and welcome to the CADclass podcast. I'm Josh.
I'm Jake.
As usual, you know the drill. We're back here to talk. We got some fun stuff to talk about this week, Jake. We've been teasing it.
I'm really stoked.
We've been teasing it a little bit.
Busy week for us. Busy week in the best possible way, though.
And a busy weekend. So we haven't had much of a break from work. Not that
you haven't.
Well, and we talk a lot about this. Like break. You're like, oh, we've been working for 9 straight days. We should totally just take some time off. And Jake, what do we do? We don't.
No, we don't listen to our partners and we just keep on working.
We just keep working.
Happy space. Yeah.
It's kind of a nice thing when you're working on things that you're connected with, that you feel passionate about, that you feel like you're making progress on. It turns out that I won't say work never feels like work, because there's some things that I do that I don't love that I have to do. So it sometimes does feel like work, but for the most part, I would say I really enjoy getting up and getting to work and trying to sort everything out. So
I really do as well.
So it's not a bad place to be. Yeah, really quickly, a little bit of housekeeping
context for everyone. What we're talking about. This has been a very busy week because this past weekend, Josh has been continuing on with our innovation grants that we got here in Sacramento, and finally started our cohort. Massive success. Everyone's very, very happy. We'll be talking about it a little bit later in the pod because there'll be a few people coming onto this podcast that came from those cohorts. So we just want to say big hello and big thank you to everyone from our cohorts.
Huge,
it was a ton of fun having you. I mean, I'm saying that I was not in the city.
You were there. You were there in spirit, and then you were also there in FaceTime. So I got a little FaceTime walk around with you.
I know, but I was hanging out at a brewery while Josh.
That's right. Good. Getting some necessary recharge. So really quickly, every day we come on, or every podcast that we come on, for those of you who are new, we like to welcome you and say hello. So good morning, Joe Street. Joe Street is just absolute beast mode in there, helping you all in the Discord, staying engaged with the community. Huge thanks once again, Joe Street. It's so awesome to have you here. He's almost always like one of the first few in the chat saying hello. So good morning to you. Cornelia, which is Connie in the Discord. Connie, just epic every week. I feel like we have to stop saying that because every week we say it. So,
we say that every single time.
Hopefully we're not inflating egos too much in here. But Connie, Cornelia, really nice to have you. Spitfire, local here to Sacramento. RC Fest is coming up. Sadly, I will be out of town in Utah this weekend, so I'll miss RC Fest. But Richard Spitfire has agreed to pass out some of our flyers and talk about what we do, and I hope to make the RC Fest next year. Elareth is new. I don't know who you are, Elareth, but welcome to the pod. It's really nice to have you. Sam, as usual, Sam and Fam. And Aaron Rosen. So it's nice to have you all. And what we do every week is we pop in here. These used to be places where we would do private events and we would have a Zoom with people that signed up. And then Jake and I decided that's not as fun as doing some of this live. So if you have questions about CAD or about 3D printing or about some issue that you're facing, feel free to pop those in the chat. We would love to answer those questions for you. And with that, Jake, you want to show off some cool stuff?
I think we should. Yeah. Just to continue off of what you were saying, these used to be office hours, and it used to be rigid and have all these questions, and that's not the vibes anymore. The vibes are now showing off people's projects, making them feel welcome and loved in our really kick-ass community, but then answering as many questions as we can, because that's just kind of fun to do, and then philosophizing about making and CAD and 3D printing and what is really the meaning of it. What really is the meaning of existence?
Look how smart we are. Oh, yes.
I know.
Listen to these.
My head is gigantic.
We opine on all things making and business and CAD. And remember when we started these, Jake? I don't think people realize. So when we first started this podcast...
Oh, don't watch the first 4 episodes.
You should, or do, because then you're like, oh, well, these guys, what are they talking about? We were talking about business. We went really high level with this. And I got to say, it wasn't very fun. It wasn't for us. We just sort of mimicked what everybody else does. We thought, well, don't people come here to hear our generic business advice? And we didn't really.
Nobody cares.
So nobody cares. Nobody cares.
It's much more interesting to.
We leave these podcasts.
I fell asleep in the middle of one of them.
Oh, it's terrible. We leave these podcasts, and I think we've done a couple where we leave and we go, "How'd that feel?" I'm like, "Oh, that wasn't great. That didn't. Yeah, that really didn't.
That wasn't fun at all.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy that. So that's what we do. We do what we enjoy.
But they're more fun. Anyway.
Any
Every single week we like to show off all the fantastic projects of our members. I would actually prefer to say we want to highlight some of the projects in our community, but unfortunately I can't do that because every single project that I see that people post on our communities, there is always something really rad about it that I just love to highlight. Every single one of them. Ones that are people just coming up with these really simple ideas and they're just fixing a tiny little problem. I adore those. And then people that are coming up with artistic projects, I adore those as well. And then people coming up with fantastic, elaborate solutions with 3D printing and CAD to fix one of their very niche problems. That's rad as well. So I unfortunately can't highlight anything because all of them are highlighted. So
it's the magic too. I think even the ones that, so we have some newer members from the Sacramento cohort that are printing the tool holder for the Ender 3, which we built this past weekend. And even for those folks who just printed their first thing, I have to remind myself pretty often just how exciting it was to have an object magically appear in front of my eyes. It was the first thing that I printed. And so even those folks who are not yet designing their own custom things, but are just printing things on their machines that they have sitting next to them, congratulations. We're also stoked to see that because that's where it starts. And you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I think the first time that you actually print something, that's amazing. That's magical. I think the first time that you print something that you designed, that's magical. Separately, the first time you print something and it works the first time, you feel on top of the world. Like Cloud9, you design something and then it clicks and it fits into something, and you're like, I can make anything. It's like, yeah, you probably can, dude. And then the first time you sell something that you make, that's Cloud9 as well. That feels like you cheated a little bit. But I think one of the first big things was when I printed something in vase mode for the first time.
Yes,
that was magical.
Which is doesn't know, Spiralize outer contour.
Yeah. The idea is that instead of printing layers, you're actually printing a continuous spiral, kind of like a spring where it just adds up layer and layer, which means the entire project is one wall thick. And because it doesn't have to decelerate and then reaccelerate anytime it moves up a level, it can just go to continuous speed. And you can basically build really large, voluminous things in a very short amount of time. So anytime you see 3D printing trade shows, that is what people have. Yeah. So Josh's little...
So this is Spiralized outer contour, and this, I believe, this object, I mean, this would take 6 to 8 hours on a classic Ender 3 if you didn't do, and maybe more,
a few layers,
right? If you didn't do Spiralized outer contour. But because I did Spiralized outer contour, I want to say it printed in an hour or two.
Yeah, it's maybe super duper quick. It's really fun. Anytime you want to build a little bowl or a planter or something artistic, it is the most fun thing to do. And it's
totally.
I've always kind of analogized. Anyway, sure. I've always made connections. There we go. That's a word. To when you see plants that are growing in like carbon dioxide chambers, where there's the absolute perfect ratio of elements for this plant, and you can literally see it grow in real time. It's not just time lapse. It is that similar thing where normally 3D printers, you check on it and it's at this level, and then you walk away and you come back and it's a little bit taller, and same thing. But then with vase mode, it grows in real life. You can actually sit there for a couple minutes and see it grow, which is so trippy. It's really, really rad.
It's amazing. Yeah, I love it. So Spiralized outer contour, it's a checkbox in Cura if you're using Cura. Definitely check that out when you're doing something that only requires one layer. And actually, I think you can even do it with 2 layers, right? So it just, actually, maybe not. I don't know. I'm speaking. No, that doesn't make any sense. Ignore that.
Anyway, we want to go ahead and share off some of our crew. It is such a good time. Touchscreen, fine, that's fine. We wanted to share off some of our community with all the stuff that they're making. So anytime that you guys make something rad, please post it to the I Made a Thing, because it's our favorite thing to see.
Totally. I'll start down. Can you go? No, start at the top there.
Sorry, that's right. Yes,
I want to talk right there.
Last week.
Yeah. So we got this last week coming in from Dr. Venerable, which is just like phone case here.
Yeah, a little phone stand.
Love it,
and it's simple. I can't imagine it took them more than a couple minutes to model. Maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes to 3D print. And it's just something that it's not going to change the world. It's just a little something, something that helps you out. And I love this stuff. I absolutely adore this.
Love the really simple stuff. We did talk about Andre Maple Leaf Makers. Good morning, Maple Leaf Makers. We did talk a little bit about that in Blender last week. But this one, this next one, or not this next one, because this is okay. So the first home print. So first off, this is one of our Sacramento cohort folks. I told them when they build these Ender 3 3D printers, I said, you got to make a tool holder.
Yeah.
Right away, first thing. Because I don't know about you, Jake, but when I teach these classes, these little tools, no matter what you do,
everywhere,
instantly disappear. I don't know where they go. There must be a graveyard somewhere for those little tools that you lose immediately in kits like this. But and I would say it's got to be giant. The stack of them has to be huge.
Oh my god, dude.
Right. So you make a tool holder so that you can keep your stuff organized. And we love organization. Speaking of organization, Ogre, who's here, can we say a little bit about, you and I think both have a real love for Harbor Freight, which is an inexpensive tool company that really, I would argue, helps people get started in the world of making things. They're not making the highest end stuff, right? These tools, for the most part, aren't going to last forever. But one thing they do particularly badly is make tool holders for things.
Yes, they do.
Anytime you buy something from Harbor Freight, the chance that it actually holds the tools is basically zero. So, Ogre, huge shout out.
Actually making something that works. Fantastic.
Fixing the stupid problem. Yes.
Yeah, making a little holder for all these screwdrivers. And then putting magnets in it. Oh, nice.
Do you remember was it the hex wrenches that had the like fold out tool case that every time you popped off the top, what happened? It blew up with tools. Like you first off, it's one of those stupid plastic pieces where you can't even pry it apart. And then when you finally manage to get it pried apart, it's like, bang! And then you have that times 8 because you're teaching a class of 16 kids. Yeah.
My favorite thing, not favorite, my least favorite thing is when you have when you have those stupid briefcases of socket and ratchets, and you open it upside down the first time and all of them fall out, and it takes you a million years to put it back together. I love
and
that.
There's always one missing.
Yeah.
And it's
always
the
the 10 mil.
It is the one, the 10 mil. It's always missing.
Yeah. So I absolutely adore this. This isn't a return to Jake rant at all. But it's something that I do want to chat about.
Yeah.
I don't understand the purpose of buying 50 screwdrivers where it has, these are my torques, these are my security torques, flathead, screwdriver, micro screwdriver, blah, 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 all of them. I don't understand it. Just buy the holder that has the little quarter hex at the end and put in a different end. You just have like 25 handles. It's like just have one handle and then like a little holder of all the ends. I recognize the situations like, it needs to be, I need a screwdriver that's really deep that goes into like an engine cavity. And if I pull it out and the little magnet or the little, the actual screwdriver stays in there, that's a nightmare. I get that. I completely understand that. Do you know how many times I've needed to reach inside somewhere really deep where I couldn't then take something out? Probably twice in my entire life. Most of the times I'm just screwing something in my hand or into a wall. Like that's it.
Yeah.
So I've got all of my sockets really nicely laid out. I don't think I have every single screwdriver head you can possibly imagine, but I've got damn near all of them in the little tiny one and the 2-inch one. Yeah. And I love them. I absolutely adore them.
Do you have your stadium seating handy?
I don't. It's in my tool.
Okay. So I actually really did love that product. Your stadium seating for bits inside of your pull-out tool cart. For some reason, that just brought like joy. I imagine this is ridiculous, but I imagine each one of those little bits was like a person sitting in an audience watching a match. But really, what they were watching is you preparing for some battle block competition.
Yeah.
And so
but it's so unbelievably handy.
Yeah.
And I love it so much. And there's nothing that makes me just cringe and irk more is when I see someone opening up their tool cart and as soon as they open it, you just hear things clunking and rolling.
Yes.
It's like just put them in in a little magnetic holder.
Yeah, we're not at all particular type A. We're just some laid back guys who just throw shit around, right? I don't think we're. Caden says the lost tools end up with the unmatched socks. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. There's a special place for those. That feels like a museum exhibit, honestly. If only we knew people that worked at a museum that could pull something off like that.
If only. But then all of the bits, like I've got all of my bits, stadium seating, love it. But then I've got a million like Phillips number 2s. That's like the standard screwdriver one that everyone knows. Just like in a Ziploc bag, tucked away. So when I eventually lose one out of my stadium seats, I can just put another one in.
I feel like if you're going to have multiple, I feel this way about cell phone chargers. Go ahead and plug one into every wall, right? They're cheap enough for the most part. You don't have to pull them out of the wall and stick them in another socket. You can just buy them for the house. And then anywhere you happen to end up, you just plug your phone in, right? I feel similarly about screwdrivers, where if you're going to have a Phillips, throw it in every drawer you're likely to look in and just have one there, right? Don't have them all stashed away in the same spot, because now like they don't really serve the purpose that they had in the first place, which is like, it'd be nice if I just had one of these handy next to the thing that I'm working on. So that's a job.
I used to, it broke. I had a little, it was in the shape of a teapot, which I adored, but it was a little tape measure that was on my keychain. And I used that thing probably every single day for years.
Was it the Milwaukee? Was it the Milwaukee?
No. I got it. It was $1
I think
off
I know what it was.
It was the little teapot.
Love my Milwaukee like 6-foot tape measure. And I used to tell people, like, every chance that they would listen, you should just ignore having one of those big chunky tape measures that is in the bottom of a bucket that you will never touch, and you should strap to your keychain, and it works for 98% of the use cases, and I always have it. I had that thing on me every single day that we worked at the workshop. To the point where I had to buy a new one because I broke it. And it's not for like snapping the thing back in place. But Joe Street says something really cool here. So speaking of BattleBots, Rabbit is ironing out the date for our next near mid-end of July. Great. We should have our new arena by then done.
That's
well,
oh Josh, you can do it.
We are not wording very well today. We should have our new arena done by then too.
That's rad. So excited for that. Everyone that doesn't know, Joe Street is one of our fantastic moderators. Josh, stop making me
contagious.
Words.
It's contagious. I know. It's like
And he is one of the leaders of the Rabid, which is the Richmond area
bot instigated destruction. Great.
There we
name.
go. Yes.
Great
Holding
name.
hands.
We are officially sponsors of their new arena. So Jake and I are trying to take a somewhat, we're early now still in our company history, but we want to take a Red Bull approach. So you know how Red Bull sponsors all those really rad, ridiculous events? We want to be that for the maker world. We want to sponsor things that actually make noise, and BattleBot competitions, and like
some of the best ones.
Yeah. So super, super interesting. Yeah, words are hard. Thanks, Josie. Words. Yeah. Apparently they are this morning.
Anyway, I wanted to go back to our lovely Discord and just show off some more people's projects, as we love to do. Continuing onwards. I'm not sure if I saw what that was. I will check that out later. This is actually a really super duper common problem that I see that I just want to chat about really quickly. This is the tool holder. It looks like Todd 3D printed it.
Todd was in our cohort.
Todd. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so Todd 3D printed it, and they just have the little T-track rails that go into the aluminum extrusions, and then they obviously need support. So this, you can see why it's a little raggedy. And unfortunately, if you go, well, this needs support, fantastic. It will put support not only supporting the underside, if I can actually see the side profile, not only on this underside, but also inside this little valley. And that little valley of support material is a nightmare to remove. So difficult, such a pain. And so this is actually one of the projects that I encourage people to then try and use the support block tool in Cura. where it literally, you can select this tool, click on your model, and it essentially just adds a, I think, 10 millimeter cube, and you can treat this like a model. So you can move it around all in your workspace, you can move it vertically, you can stretch it, pull it anywhere, and this essentially means that anywhere that this cube or rectangle or anything intersects with your model, it will only apply support material in that one area. So you have to make it rather thin, rather long and skinny.
This is also
but it just lays inside that, and it saves you a ton of print time and
definitely
a ton of headaches in the future.
Yeah, and you don't want to be digging that stuff out, Jake. This is also probably a decent time to talk about orientation, right? So, like, are there other ways that we could print this that may work? Why might they work? Why might they fail? Like, these are the kinds of interesting questions that come up when you think about how to design.
Really good question. This one, when most people think about it, it actually is printed in the normal orientation, where it's not all that tall, so you can just print it flat. If you did want to print it with this face standing upwards, then you would only need support material on there. The problem with that is now the cross-sectional area, or the layers, are actually going up the length of it. And so where the very end of this very long arm is touching the rest of the project, that a pretty small surface area. So that's likely to snap off. And I know from a lot of experience, because I've printed many of these, that this, or the tolerance, the fit, is pretty tight onto those aluminum extrusions. And so when you try and push it in there, it is a bit of a solid fit. And if you try and make this printed vertically, that's going to be a pretty bad issue. So just print it in its normal orientation with support material, and you're going to be totally fine.
And use that little support material trick. And I want to shout out Dom. I believe it's Dom, Geek Toy Box. Hi guys, come out to Maker Faire OC if you're in the LA, Orange County, San Diego, SoCal area. 9/14, 9/15. Bunch of BattleBot stuff going on. Dom is awesome. Huge shout out to you. And please do, if you've got events that you want to share and you want to shout out on the pod, or you want to put in,
please.
You can let us know for sure as well. We'll throw those in the announcement section inside of the CADclass Discord server. So amazing. If you happen to be an OC in September 14th and 15th, definitely check that out. We know a handful of those folks for Maker Faire OC, and they rock.
For any international people, that means the Orange County in Southern California.
And David Dickens, when is the new book out? And will it bring new videos with it?
It will do. Let me actually flick back.
Will. But we're not talking. I think he's asking David. Clarify. I think he's probably talking about the round 2 fusion.
Yes.
So yes, we will have new videos. Yes, we will have a couple new projects, and we're going to do a couple other things that have been requested, Jake. Which is we're going to give a little bit more design context around what we do.
Yeah.
We're going to
which is something that I love.
I love it too, but we were trying to find that balance. I think in our quest to build projects that are just step by step, we did hit some design principles, but we didn't hit them hard enough. So we're gonna shift the balance just a little bit and talk a little bit of design engineering thinking, why we're making some of the decisions we're making, not all of them, but some of them. And with that, we're gonna have 2 new projects. And Jake, I think this is probably a decent time too to mention we're probably gonna make a Fusion workbook at some point, where we get much deeper into the fundamentals, say sketches and constraints and examples around those.
Architecture, all that good stuff.
Big time. And that was inspired by our new book coming out. Do you want to grab?
Oh, what a good transition.
Oh my goodness.
Ooh.
So what do we have? What have
ugly gray bar on it?
Yeah. Yes. So we just got our proofs back. For what do we get our proofs back for, Jake?
This is for our brand new TinkerCAD series that we're going to be essentially just promoting towards student and teachers or individuals that want to kind of get into it. TinkerCAD is a fairly simplistic browser-based CAD software. It's still made by Autodesk, the same people that make Fusion, formerly Fusion 360. They also make Inventor, so they go all the way from the super-duper high-level, engineering, industry-based CAD tools all the way down to super-duper simple. You can kind of think of it like how Scratch is for coding, where you're pulling in pre-made blocks and teaching kids or anyone who wants to just kind of dip their toes into CAD. This is where TinkerCAD is about. But we want to kind of show off in a little bit of a CADclass fashion where we can still make it fun and exciting, because a lot of CAD education is so dreary and so dull.
Gate
It's
caps
like,
and engineering. And
yes,
look, I love engineering, but I
I
don't
love
love
engineering too,
engineering
but
speak. I love
yes,
science. I don't love scientists who pretend to be smarter than everybody.
yeah,
Right? Feynman
and
is one of my great and favorite people because he said if you can't explain it to a fifth grader, you don't understand it. And so we've taken that
yeah.
philosophy and really tried to apply it.
Yeah. And so coming in with teaching as much of the program, it is actually a rather large program,
It's
but we've hit
huge.
on vast majority of them. So this should be done and on Amazon in a couple weeks, fingers crossed, or potentially a month. Who knows?
Why don't you flip through some of those pages, Jake? I want to see the color popping. Oh my goodness. Let me just see the
No,
color.
well, no, Josh,
Yeah.
I've shown everything. It's really
Just
quick.
a little.
Oh, it's blurry
Oh.
anyway. That's fine.
Anyways, yeah, so stay tuned. And this is going to change. The reason I wanted to mention it, I know a lot of you folks are Fusion, and most of you are making that transition from TinkerCAD to things like Fusion.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons I wanted to mention it is because, Jake, you and I have been talking a lot about what it is that we do and what it is that we would like to continue to help other people do. And so we've come up with a kind of frame for how we want our publishing company to think about what we build. And we've come up with kind of a 3-tiered system that I wanted to share a little bit with our audience, especially you folks who support us every week. And that is the BFB, and we're going to say the big freaking book, which is like the Fusion 360 step-by-step projects. It is a lot of work. It's a lot of effort to build those projects. And it takes a
Big
long
and
time
heavy,
to
and
get
it
through
sits
it,
on your desk.
but it will take you from beginner to intermediate plus and maybe even basic advanced if you really go through all those challenges. And then we have the workbooks, which we want to be fundamentals,
Pocketable.
foundational, put it in your pocket, take it with you, teach a class with it. It's going to get those fundamentals really solid so that you can graduate to something like the BFB. And then the third series is we want to hop off and do some specific tutorials around design for 3D printing with Fusion, design for 3D printing with Onshape, design for 3D printing with TinkerCAD, right? So we have specific topics related to specific softwares. Where I think a lot of people go wrong online is that they end up going, okay, we're going to teach you design for 3D printing, which is nice, except that you get a little bit lost sometimes in the design software that you choose. So we're going to go a little bit more specific there, and that will be the kind of the larger ecosystem from there.
And then we're planning on expanding on that and saying, oh, well, I want to learn about, CAD for CNCing or CAD for laser printing, potentially plasma cutting, who knows in the future. But all those are basically specific to that CAD program.
Yeah.
And if you say, yeah, I know a lot about 3D printing, I know a lot about Fusion, and you go, okay, I'm just going to make a similar thing on Onshape, for example, it's not going to be an easy transition.
Yeah.
And there's going to be certain really fantastic tools that are in Fusion that are not in Onshape. There's going to be some really fantastic tools that are in Onshape that are not in Fusion. Or they may be annoying plugins for each other. And so there really is some specificity to designing with your tool for your project. And when that tool changes, then you need to kind of follow along with it. And so we're going to be enacting these a little bit later in the future. But this is going to be the system going down in the future as well.
Evan Shorts says, will it be available on Apple Books too? So Evan, here is our promise to you and to the world. And we've now spoken this into the world multiple times. And I think, Jake, we're pretty damn committed to it. So
yeah, we really are.
We give our books away as a PDF, and we hope to be able to give away every single book that we ever do, either for
Completely
free
for
or for a donation as a PDF on our website. That will really depend on you all helping support some of those books as we go. We know we can rely on you because you both buy the books when that's necessary, or to your point, Evan, when people don't want to buy the book, we wanted them to have access to it anywhere they were in the world, even if they couldn't afford it, and also not necessarily printing all that material to kill trees. So
we work with a lot of teachers where they go, "Yep, I can afford just having one book as my teacher. I get
one book, and then I would like to do this with the rest of the class."
Whole classroom. Yeah. It becomes not really feasible. And I'm sure most of you guys don't know. If we were to then have a Kindle available, it means we legally are not allowed to give away our content as a PDF for free. And it's like, do we want a couple more sales with Kindle or be able to give
it away
full accessibility to every single person who has a computer on the planet?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with most accessible.
And I think the truth is, once you publish a book online, you can just assume that it's going to be pirated and taken for free anyway. So there is really
May as
like
well.
dual motives. Like we definitely want to just have this be open and accessible to everybody. We don't want to silo it. We don't feel like we are the only people that deserve to have this knowledge, or that you need to pay to play. So
Yeah.
we are committed, even though we're a for-profit. I think this is pretty unique, Jake. We're a for-profit company. It's not like we're a nonprofit, strictly trying to do good to the world. But I just think I honestly think it's good business, and it's good karma. We feel really good about doing it. So
Yeah.
we hope to continue to give away free books. And one day, Jake, I'd like to be the best free library for learning design 3D printing in the world.
Yeah, I totally agree. Every single time that I see those in neighborhoods, free libraries or local neighborhood libraries, fills my heart with joy. I love seeing
Oh,
that
that's
stuff.
right. Geek Toy Box says, don't forget, you can always email a PDF to your Kindle. That is right. And if you've got a full color Kindle, part of the reason, too, we didn't want to publish to Kindle is because it is a terrible experience on a black and white screen. So if you have a Kindle with that e-text or whatever that's called, the paper, whatever. What's that stuff called?
I know what you mean. We all know.
Whatever that text is, which I really love my Kindle for that. But if you've got anything other than, the full color version, you may as well not look.
It's not enough. Yeah.
It's not going to look nice. It's not going to work well. So e-ink.
Yeah,
he says.
So I don't know how true this is. Oh yeah.
I'm always happy to buy. But by the way, like, we are not asking people to buy. We say suggested donation, but we are obviously very happy for the support that you guys provide. It allows us to do a ton of stuff in the meantime.
Yeah. I don't, just going back to it, I don't know how true this is. Someone told me that e-ink uses it. I believe it was developed by NASA for the ISS, and it uses like an obscenely low amount of power for a Kindle to actually move all the pixels. Like, it is catastrophically low power.
Catastrophically low power.
Yeah,
that's like an oxymoron.
Yeah, that if you only have other books on your Kindle or whatever, someone said that you technically, like, you would never need to charge it in your entire lifetime. That's how little power it uses, and you could read books all the time. And it's just the act of importing and downloading it that uses all the power.
Yeah.
So rad.
Yeah, they last a long time. Yeah, they don't use much power at all. Super low power.
Which is fantastic.
Doesn't need a refresh. I also really just enjoy the reading experience on it. Although I'm not sure if you feel this. I was thinking about this last week. So I just got for the business, we just got an iPad, and I was used to reading on Kindle, and now I've kind of switched to reading more on my iPad. And I actually, I'm like so used to screens that I kind of prefer reading on my iPad now, which I feel a little guilty about because it's gotten me further and further away from physical books. But anyways, enough about us, Jake. Let's continue showing off what other people did.
I actually saw quite a few different projects, not in the I made a thing category, but in a couple different areas.
Well,
quick. Why the Dickens? I'm so happy with what I've learned in this course. I would have no idea how to make this a few weeks ago. Just a really simple little, what I imagine is a toothbrush holder. Really simple projects like this. I mean, when you're first getting into CAD and first getting into 3D printing, it's like that would, like, you can't even think about where to begin.
Yes. You don't know what you don't know, and it's completely overwhelming.
And it doesn't take all that long to actually learn the very basics of this.
No.
Like, I truly believe, I mean, I have no idea how far what the Dickens got into it, but you could probably make this entire thing after chapter 0 and chapter 1. I think after that, you would have no problem making this.
Yep.
So absolutely fantastic.
Love it.
We did see a few of the challenges.
Wow, look at this, Connie. Connie.
Derry last week was saying, how would I make this? And Connie stepped up. Here's my result. Unfortunately, the transitions were not quite as smooth as they should be. Yeah.
I can't believe you're managing to talk yourself out of like how amazing this is.
How rad
like
this is.
Somewhat discussion about transitions. This looks incredibly well. This is a hard project. This is not easy.
Not easy at all. Yeah, this is absolutely fantastic. I love to see this kind of stuff. And someone from the community taking on someone else's problem as a challenge. That's so rad. That is so cool.
This is the coolest.
Connie, as always, hats off. That's absolutely fantastic. But Connie was also, I believe, going on to the longboard project. Yes.
Yeah.
And making a couple signs, and people are running into some issues. Because one of the things that people really want to do is, do engravings, because that's something that CNCs do fantastically. So it looks like Moses wants to put a little Heineken logo. probably one of my favorite beers. And
Nah.
yeah,
Ah.
I know it's fine. It's just nice. And actually going through and then engraving this. And it's actually not super duper easy to do engravings. There's a couple things that are a little tricky. And then Connie was also working on this as well. Wanted to make a little coffee shop. And the engrave tool is a little tricky. The idea with the engraving tool is that it's essentially just it's a normal shank with a point on it. So usually 90 degrees. So it's essentially just a chamfer. So if you have a little chamfer on the ends, it just runs all the way around it, just traces the outside profile.
It's a V shape is what it is.
Yeah, it's a V shape. And so if you have some lettering, something like this O, as you can see where it gets really thin on top and then it widens down, then
That's
not
really
only
nice.
is it adjusting, circling around that letter O, but it's also going downwards for the wider sections on the left and the right, and then coming back up. And this sounds like a really, really difficult thing, but you literally just select
like
the outer and the inner edges.
Yep.
And it does all the work for you.
It's really nice. And two things I'll say really quickly about signs. First off, sign making is a gigantic industry. I don't think people recognize just how large that industry is. So if you're thinking about getting into CNC, there's no better place to start than signs. Great way to make money, great way to practice your skill set. It's not all that hard to design these pieces. You definitely have the skill set after our program to do it. It may take you a little bit of time to get used to CNC, but I mean, sign making is giant. The other thing I'll say is if you take a piece of wood, let's say you're using maple, for example, a nice light wood, and you paint or stain or put a
that is literally what I said down here. I was just about to bring that up. Yeah.
Nice. You put a dark layer on top or vice versa, right? It's dark on the inside, but it's light on top. When you engrave it, it just pops.
It pops. It looks
beautifully.
So rad.
And we're going to be using some really cool stuff. It's HDPE, but it's a 2-color high density plastic that changes colors with the layer. And if you just basically cut off one layer on the top, and it's like 1/10 of a millimeter. It's not much, or maybe a little bit more than that, maybe 1/2 a millimeter. But you take off that top layer, the underlayer is a different color, and that sign just goes bananas. And when you play with layers of colors, you can then get multicolored sign depending on the depth of the cut that you do. And it ends up looking like you did a ton of work. And realistically, you didn't do that much design work, and it didn't take that much time to mill it. And you got yourself frankly, like a world-class sign. So really love seeing the sign stuff.
And these just look awesome.
They look awesome.
Continuing onwards, Paul Hobbies made the robot hand, and then went on to do the challenge, which is adding a thumb. Looks like he had just a little bit of problem with the actual fingers curling into themselves, which, I mean, it doesn't happen in real life, but
that's how my fingers work.
Yeah. No, this is a really common problem that people run into with this. And it's one of those things where we don't really teach you how to do it. You just got to figure it out.
That's right.
It does have to do with the ratios of the motion links of how they're moving. But it does, it's a little tricky, but it's definitely fixable.
For context, this hand was one of the hardest projects for us to communicate in the book. I don't know if you remember this, Jake, but we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to lay out the information for how to design like the palm sketch thing. And I'm not sure we nailed it, but I'm also not sure it's nailable. Right. Like it was a tough task to try to communicate this project.
I completely agree. I think the robot, I'm kind of glad that we put it so late in the program, just because you're going to be running into problems where it is actually very difficult because we give you such little information. Good luck. Figure it out. We are absolutely not in the business of giving you guys so many easy projects that you get bored and you actually don't learn as much. I am 100% in the business of pushing you guys to really experiment, do challenges, make your own stuff, because that is the best way to learn. If I just give you a bunch of homework, you're never really going to absorb it. But as soon as you then take all that information and make your own projects and really deeply, deeply learn it, that's when you'll have these skills that you can step away for 10 years and then come back and still recognize how things work. So
100% agree with you. 100% agree. And I think the hard thing I really struggle with this right now. This is a bit of philosophizing, but I have kind of competing voices in my head. One of them wants me to get things done instantly and get through the program and like really like the what I'm interested in is the outcome of things, right? And the other voice is like, hang on a second, slow down a little bit, Josh, take your time, get to know this, work through it, work on a challenge that doesn't necessarily come to you easily, that might take you a week to get through. It feels like you're like in an almost paradoxical way. It feels like you're making less progress, but you're actually using your brain and making more progress, even though it's slower, even though it takes longer. And so, but I go back and forth in my head. I'm like, I just want to get the thing done and, get out of my face. I'll watch a video at 2x speed. Like, stop. Like, I need to go as fast as possible. And I'm always having to like mediate the voices of in my head. Like, okay, all right, this time we're going to go a little quickly. And no, you need to slow down here. What about you?
I had a similar thing. So my learning ideology, excuse me, and I'm just pulling from school times. If I couldn't do the test or the quiz or the final as fast as my hand could write, I didn't know it. Like, I was always the first person to finish the test, finish the quiz, and turn it in. Because I'm like, if I'm sitting around going, I'll go back, I'll get back to that one, I'm going to start on something else and come back, I failed that test. I just know I did. And so I'm like, I have to be able to like reel as fast as humanly possible. And that's when I know that I did well. But does that mean that I actually learnt all that stuff very deeply intuitively? Probably not. Like, learning and doing all of these, like learning the Bernoulli equation for fluid dynamics and getting all the answers right. Yeah, I know that. I get it. I can do the math. But then deeply understanding and going and actually doing my own research and saying, oh, Bernoulli. Oh, okay. That's why, when I'm in the shower and I have hot water, my shower curtain comes into it, because that's Bernoulli theorem. Or why blowing air feels cold, but doing that feels warm. Well, that's Bernoulli theorem. And all of this stuff that is not an equation, I didn't really kind of dig deeply into that. So something that I kind of regret. But
well, you don't really learn what you don't do.
Yeah.
Right. So this idea, and you and I talk a lot about this, but what we're essentially creating is a new type of online university, right? A new publishing company. When we're talking about these things, we're trying to invent a different way of learning. And I think one of the things that makers in general really intuit as they start to do things is, oh, I didn't understand wood until I started woodworking. I didn't understand trees. I didn't care. Like, there wasn't context in my life and a need for me to get to know these things. But once there is, and once you start doing it and building things and getting your hands on stuff, what you're faced with is your own limitations. You recognize, oh, I really don't know much at all. And despite the fact that I sat in a classroom and somebody preached at me for a while, and then I filled some circles in on a test and I got the bubble answers right, you come out of those experiences going, whoa. Like, not only do I not know anything, it gave me the false sense that I do know something. And so I think, if anything, one of the things that we're trying to achieve is an actual deep learning of how, and you get that through bringing things to life in the world. There's a lot of other ways to get it as well, but typically you get it by sight, sound, touch, smell, taste, right? These are the ways that you get better at doing things. Same with cooking, for example. I think cooking is one of the best things that you can do to get to learn how to learn, because you get instant feedback every time you do it. And if you're paying attention, you're like, it only takes one time where you make a mushy stir fry where you go, what the hell did I just do with that stir fry? And you go,
I supposed to cook it for an hour?
Or I overcrowded the pot, right? I steamed all my vegetables in there instead of frying them because I smashed all the stuff in the pot because I was trying, right? So, but that feedback is what's really so necessary. So anyways, a lot of rants today.
Yeah. I don't think it's a rant. I think it's a philosophizing. Yeah. But I want to change the topic a little bit. We're going to have our course being taught by one of our old friends, Mr. Truman, who's going to go to Ethiopia this summer and teach our course. In July. And actually work with some schools down there that are very disadvantaged.
Actually, it's a nonprofit, and they work with orphans and widows, specifically in Addis Ababa, which is the capital of Ethiopia, and some other places around that. And they are, we originally connected with them when we were part of the old workshop, and that it's actually the former prime minister and his wife that run the organization, and they are doing absolutely phenomenal work trying to get micro businesses off the ground. They're teaching their widows to sew. They're teaching their students how to make. They're doing heat press and T-shirt design right now, and
That's one
Truman's
of the
going
things
to
that
take
we
over.
taught them. Yeah.
Yeah, and Truman's going to take over 2 Ender 3 3D printers and our course and all the materials and probably some books with him, and he's going to teach these kids how to make stuff with
Which
3D
is
printers.
just so mind-blowing. I'm
amazing.
so excited on the day that we get to just kind of explore some parts of Africa and just like develop certain communities and just teach as many people as possible. That's one of my goals in life.
I mean,
1,000,000%.
I would bet you that if you can get a couple of those students really interested in there, the creativity is going to be outrageous, and they're going to be solving real problems in their communities and just doing such cool stuff. So, we couldn't be happier to be a part of that and to be supporting from the back end. I was hoping to get there this year, but not gonna fit within the constraints of our business this year. But in hopefully July of 25, I want to go back to Ethiopia.
Me too. I've never been there. Really want to.
Awesome.
But the reason I bring this up is we were talking about this yesterday. That the Bamboo Mini A1?
A1 Mini, yeah.
The A1 Mini, phenomenal printer, is now $250. Right,
$249.
Obscenely inexpensive.
It's getting hard to justify the original Ender.
I know, and the reason that we're talking about it is because there is still, or I will still propose this, there is still value in building your own printer and understanding all the mechanics, how things work, how they interact with each other, and essentially trying to teach someone the mechanisms of troubleshooting and what the anatomy of a 3D printer is when everything was pre-made in a box is not actually that easy. Not only is it not easy, but it also carries with it a little bit of trepidation to opening up your printer, taking it apart, and kind of looking into, the motherboard and all these wires and what they do. And if you don't build it yourself, it can really stall you a lot.
That said, I like to think of it, there is definitely a line here. And I think 3D printing is not quite robust enough that it just works all the time. So something's going to go wrong in that bamboo at some point. You're going to have to fix it. That's just like how it goes. But like if you think of a microwave, right? We wouldn't go, oh, well, you really need to take your microwave apart because what if it breaks and you have to fix it, right? And so as it gets closer and closer to the microwaveization, that's not a word, but as it gets closer and closer to that style of it's just an appliance that sits at your house and you can press the go button and it works, actually we do get a little bit further away from that engineer-y, maker-y, builder, have to fix it yourself. But we aren't there yet. And the owners of those machines will soon find out when something goes wrong.
Yeah. Really quick. Do not disassemble your microwave. Don't do it. The thing that makes microwaves, like the literal waves, is called a magnetron, and it has a chunk of beryllium in it. And people have taken it apart because they're just interested in what's inside a microwave. They crack it and then they breathe in beryllium dust, and it can kill you. Please don't mess around with a microwave. There's nothing that exciting in it.
I guess
it's just some fans and some motors and like there's a couple interesting things in there, but it's not worth it. Don't mess around with magnetrons unless you know what you're doing.
We did have a question earlier, I think, in the chat, and it was Evan Schwartz. I don't know if you're still here, Evan. What is the best way to make support/feet for our designs? I've tried creating cubes that my object slides into, but it's still floppy and a little ugly. Evan, I guess our community is growing a little bit, so I'm not sure if you're referring to Fusion or to TinkerCAD with your design. So maybe just a kind of a generic thinking here, Jake, is best.
I would say that if you're making feet for a bit of furniture or a 3D printer or anything so it doesn't mar your table, not the design, but the material is more important. Obviously, having something like plastic, little tiny 4 feet, and you put a lot of weight on it on a wooden table, it's going to dent in it, which isn't stellar. It would probably, I would actually say in this scenario, unless it's something really specific, the feet have to be, just buy some little rubber, self-adhesive rubber feet. You can buy 1 million of them at, Home Depot or Lowe's or anything like that, and just stick them on the underside of your thing, and then it's fine. It's fine. probably one of those things that, unless it's a hyper specific niche thing, oh, the feet have to be exactly this shape and flare out. Probably not necessary. Probably not necessary. Just buy it. That's fine. That was one of the topics of our shorts we put out the other week.
It was, yeah, of the
sometimes
which did really well on TikTok and a little bit flat on YouTube. I gotta say, man, we just don't know what we're doing yet, do we? We're figuring it out, but but the whole algorithm making it, what is the right formula here?
Whatever.
We don't have it yet, so we're just gonna make stuff that we think you guys will find useful. That's what we're gonna keep doing.
Really quick, 10 minutes left. I want to talk about the innovation grant that we did that you did last weekend. That was a ton of fun. It was essentially, the grant was that we were able to work with the state of California or the city of Sacramento and essentially teach 24 people how to learn CAD with our program, how to assemble a 3D printer, how to use it, with the idea that they then come up, or of our long list of people that we got to choose from, people who are sincerely wanting to make products, design things, make a small business, or build up skills for product development, or potentially their own skill set that they can then go into different businesses and actually, progress their life, go up another level in their profession. And it just looks like a ton of fun. So this first weekend was an in-person at community shop class, a really, really amazing makerspace in the Sacramento area.
It's an art exhibit that you can interact with and make stuff in.
It's a TV set. It's a workshop.
TV set.
It's really lovely.
It's like your imagined dream workshop. It's crazy.
Yeah.
The innovation grant. So the city of Sacramento, a really huge shout out to the city of Sacramento. I'm not sure if any of those folks ever stop in here, but they give out, I want to say something like $1 million a year to businesses for what's called ecosystem building in the region, where they try to spur on innovation and do things like that. And I went to an event where they were talking and chatted with a couple of the folks there and said, hey, this is kind of what I'm working on. Is that within the realm of what you guys do? And they said, yeah, and you should totally put an application in. And we did, and we won the grant to do it. And so we gave away 24 3D printers, our entire curriculum, and we brought everybody together in person on Saturday and Sunday of this past week to do one of my favorite things in the world, which is building the Ender 3. And to your point earlier, part of what's fun about it is everybody loves Legos. They really do. I haven't really met anybody that doesn't like to build a puzzle or Legos or put things together of some sort, right? It's just generally satisfying to do it. So we got everybody in the same room, and I tried a slightly different style. So we used our 3D printing assembly series video in the live class. I asked people to bring headphones. I said, let's do this independently together. So it felt, what it felt like, Jake? It felt like a silent disco. It felt like a silent disco, but in a really interesting way, because then people would get stuck and they'd be hanging out with one another. And because everybody's working on the same project, they then got to turn to their neighbor and actually ask their neighbors how to fix things. And so it led to this really awesome experience. And I got to walk around and just observe and talk. And I invited some mentors along. And this is something else that's kind of interesting that's happening now. If you're like us, starting to get a little bit older, and don't discount what younger kids can do. So I invited 3 people who completed our cohort from Roseville who were under 18 to come and serve as mentors for everybody in this program. Now this program serves students as young as 12, but as old as, I think the oldest guy was in his 70s, right?
72. Yeah, we had a 12-year-old and a 72-year-old working on the same project. And of what you told me, Josh, everyone crushed it, including them. You only had a couple of people that had some...
We had
questions
perfect
here
bed
and there.
leveling. We had a lot of people that were just excited and jazzed to be there. We got a nice introduction. But the important thing here is, like, these kids know so much about this technology because they're steeped in it and they're using it all the time. And so they actually served as excellent mentors. And I think it's a reminder to all of us that there's going to be something, you get older and you tend to think that you're going to be the older, wiser one that's teaching everybody else. And I got to say, you got to flip that script occasionally and go, what can I learn from the kids that are coming up? And the answer is a heck of a lot. And so they walked around solving all the problems, serving as mentors. And I just couldn't be happier to invite the younger students along in a role that they don't typically get to be invited into at this stage of their careers. And so huge shout out to them and to all the students who walked through. And I hope some of you, I saw a couple comments in the comment section. I saw Jessica in here. She was one of the attendees this weekend. So lovely to have you.
Makes me really
Amazing
happy.
program. 12 weeks. We are going to be focused on innovation and design. You're going to be upping your CAD skills, learning how to 3D print. And I told people right from the start, like, this really isn't about 3D printing. This really isn't about CAD modeling. What it's about is learning how to solve problems in your neighborhoods. And Chad has something really nice on the Community Shop Class website. Their philosophy of good neighborhoodism, which I tend to hate isms, but good neighborhoodism really captures what I feel our communities need. Is, if you tend to think in large ideas, like, I'm going to solve global warming, I'm going to solve the pollution issues, I'm going to solve homelessness, right? And I think in doing that, that's fine. But in doing that, you lose track of your own house and your own neighborhood and your own next door neighbors. And a lot of the innovation that we're talking about really starts with solving problems in your own life, solving problems in your neighbors' lives, and then getting to know one another and coming together to try to figure out, okay, now that you know how to solve this, now that we've built some of these simple solutions together, how do we think about how to do this larger and at a scale that's, bigger than just the 2 of us or the 10 of us, right? And so a lot of what we talked about was, hey, we're doing this not because you want to 3D print solutions to every problem, but because we want to help you guys understand how to solve problems and then how to go about turning those problems into larger solutions outside of yourselves.
Yeah. The first one that comes to mind immediately, which doesn't even include 3D printing, but one of our beta testers, Nick, his mum got in an accident. She hurt her leg, and she was confined to a wheelchair for a little bit. The outside of her house was stairs, and he's like, "Oh, I need to, whip up some woodworking ramp." And all the angles and the weirdness of the wood and the concrete floor was all bizarre. It's like, I can't figure out the angles. And he just went into Fusion, and this is all the dimensions. Here's the exact angle I need. And he said it took me a minute to design in CAD, but it would have taken me an hour to do on paper. And then he said, and then I made a ramp, whipped it up, and it worked fantastically first try. And I mean, this was our beta testers long ago, so I'm sure Nick's mum's doing fine by now. But it was just really nice to hear.
It's amazing.
It was so local, small scale problems that I'm sure made a fantastic.
But it's like, small scale problems are the problems. I think that's what I want to double click on. It's like, those are the issues that we need to solve. If you're walking around and there's a giant rock in your shoe and it punches up and hits your foot every single step you take, right? That's a problem. And if you don't solve it, like, you might end up getting frustrated or angry. Like, the point is like, if you don't pull the rock out of your shoe, how are you going to pull that rock out of other people's shoes? How are you expected to go out there and solve problems when you can't even get this simple problem in your shoe correct? So I just think there's so much mileage to be had for thinking about innovation in a much smaller and more contained way. Not because I think it needs to be local, but because I think the big solutions happen from those simple, direct applications to problem that you have. And Jessica says, "Hi, it was such an amazing experience this weekend." Jessica was rad and there, and it's really awesome to hear that. And I hope at the end of this, you put the bug in the ear for the city, where you say, "Hey, we would love to actually do this at an even larger scale with even more people." And I would, for this first cohort, Jake, I'd love to bring them around for the second time as mentors.
I really want to.
And really just build this ecosystem here in the region. I think we have an opportunity to do that. So it's lovely to have you, Jessica.
Sounds like a ton of fun.
What else do we say? Geek Toy Box, Club Domains. Oh, and we got some comments going. Dan K, good to see you in here. Dan has been going through some of the projects that we do in Fusion, but he's been trying to recreate them in TinkerCAD. And Dan, man,
that's impressive.
Your
that's
ability
really
in TinkerCAD, seriously impressive. What I like a lot about what he does as well is he's just excited to design. And, that's what a cool. Like, you and I talk a lot about designing for the sake of making things, but Dan, I go in there and he just is genuinely enjoying the process of designing things. That's really neat to see. So with that, Jake,
I think
this has been the CADclass podcast. Once again, I'm Josh.
I'm Jake.
And we will see you next Wednesday. Have a great day, everybody.
See you guys.